Let's jump right into this explainer and tackle one of the absolute biggest puzzles of our time. How do we actually bridge the electric vehicle infrastructure gap? We hear nonstop about EVs taking over the roads, right? But the reality of keeping them charged up, especially once you leave the big cities, is just a massive logistical headache. Well, today, we're going to break down exactly how some incredibly clever startups and strategic planners are solving that puzzle. Because while EVs are for sure the future, massive wide-open stretches of rural highway are a stark reminder of a major roadblock. They just don't have the chargers needed to cure that dreaded range anxiety. I mean, if you're driving a gas car, there's a pump at practically every exit. But for EV drivers, navigating these long rural corridors takes serious, meticulous planning. And honestly, that's a huge barrier to mass adoption. But here's the silver lining, and it's a big one. The EV charging station market is absolutely exploding at a staggering 44.1% compound annual growth rate globally. To put that into perspective, we're talking about jumping from just over 2 million units in 2022 to well over 14 million by 2027. It's a huge number, and it highlights an urgent need to build this network out fast, which is a golden opportunity for innovators who are ready to step up to the plate. So, here's our roadmap for this explainer. We'll start with the EV charging challenge, quickly review EV charging basics, and then dive into the really cool stuff: mobile and off-grid solutions, upgrading charging speeds, smart charging and pop-up hubs, and finally, powering the road ahead. Okay, part one, the EV charging challenge. Let's get right into it. Check out this wild contrast. 70% of our road miles are driven by just 20% of the population. People out in rural areas drive way longer distances, and they rely heavily on personal cars because, well, public transit just isn't a thing out there. So ironically, these are the exact folks who stand to save the absolute most on fuel and maintenance if we can just get the charging infrastructure into their neighborhoods. Moving on to part two, EV charging basics explained. Now, as most of you following the EV space already know, our infrastructure needs are driven by two main types of vehicles. You've got your purely battery-powered vehicles, or BEVs, which completely rely on the plug, and then you have plug-in hybrids, or PHEVs, which give you that nice 20 to 50-mile electric buffer before the gas engine kicks in. But both of them desperately need a rock-solid charging network to actually deliver on their economic and environmental promises. And this brings us to our main technical bottleneck. Level 1 charging, sure, it uses a standard wall outlet, but waiting up to 50 hours for a full charge, yeah, that's about as exciting as watching paint dry. Level 2 is great for homes or offices, but for long road trips, especially out in the country, we literally have to have DC fast charging. The catch is, those ultra-fast chargers suck up massive amounts of power, and a lot of rural electrical grids just aren't built to handle that kind of juice right now. Which leads us perfectly into part 3, mobile and off-grid solutions. These mobile and off-grid setups offer just incredible flexibility. By completely cutting the cord from the traditional grid, they bypass all those crazy expensive installation costs and massive electrical upgrades. You can basically think of them as giant power banks on wheels. They're perfect to drop into construction sites, use for rapid disaster relief, or honestly just deploy anywhere the existing grid is too weak to handle a traditional fast charger. There's a real standout in this space called FreeWire Technologies, and they're all in on this concept of infrastructure-light charging. Basically, instead of demanding a huge, expensive high-voltage connection, their systems just plug into existing standard low-voltage electrical lines. This is a total game changer because it slashes installation costs by up to 40%. Businesses can offer EV charging without having to tear up their parking lots or completely replace their electrical panels. The way their boost charger pulls this off is actually pretty ingenious. It has a massive internal battery of its own, so it just sits there all day, slowly sipping power from the grid without overwhelming it. Then, the second you pull up, it just dumps that stored power into your car incredibly fast. We are talking about delivering 100 miles of range in just 10 minutes. Absolutely wild. Then you have a company like L-Charge taking a totally different route. Instead of making you drive to the charger, they bring the charger directly to you. They use these mobile minivan power stations that literally drive right up to your car. Using clean liquid natural gas or a hydrogen blend, these vans generate their own electricity right on the spot. They can fast charge up to 48 EVs a day completely off the grid. All right, let's switch gears. Part 4. Upgrading the charging speed. So the problem with pushing electricity into a battery super fast is that it creates a ton of heat, which totally wrecks the battery's lifespan. But a Canadian startup called G Batteries has 32 patents on something called adaptive pulse charging. What they do is constantly monitor the internal state of the battery in real time, and their algorithm pulses the electricity in these really complex patterns. The result? They can pump energy in way faster than conventional methods, without cooking the battery. Along those same lines, we've got Inverted Power's Sprint Charge setup. It uses fixed battery storage to deliver high-power sprints of energy to the car. But the coolest part is that it goes both ways. It has bidirectional capability. So not only does it charge your car in a flash, but it can actually communicate backward, using its stored energy to help stabilize the broader electrical grid during peak demand times. It literally turns the charger into an active grid asset. Moving into the city now, here is part 5, smart charging and pop-up hubs. A company named Urban Electric Networks noticed a massive roadblock for city dwellers. For instance, 43% of UK households park on the street. They don't have a private driveway to put a charger in. So what's the fix? They designed these brilliant charging hubs that physically retract flush into the sidewalk when nobody is using them. You just open an app, the charger pops up, you get a steady overnight charge, and when you drive away, it disappears so pedestrians get the sidewalk back. So smart. But hey, once you're plugged in, when should the car actually start pulling power? A startup called Jedlix uses over-the-air technology to figure that out. Instead of just charging the absolute second you plug in, say at 6 p.m. when the whole grid is stressed out, their software actually talks to the grid. It waits to charge your car until electricity is at its absolute cheapest and greenest, like in the dead of night when wind energy is peaking. You save money, and the grid stays balanced. Win-win. Now, holding this entire ecosystem together is a company called Ioteca. Because let's be real, have you ever pulled up to a public charger only to find it's completely dead or won't talk to your car? Super frustrating. Ioteca provides the hidden glue, this cloud-based analytics platform. By constantly keeping an eye on the hardware's performance from the cloud, they can dramatically reduce downtime. Basically, they make sure the charger actually works when you roll up to it. Okay, final section, part 6, powering the road ahead. It's important to remember that this whole transition is getting a massive speed boost from public policy. From the $7.5 billion dedicated to EV infrastructure in the 2021 bipartisan infrastructure law, all the way to localized innovations like the upcoming March 2026 pilot for mobile charging in Massachusetts, the capital is definitely flowing, and it's all pointing toward one crystal clear target: getting a convenient national network of 500,000 chargers up and running by 2030. Ultimately, why does this matter? Well, it's not just about flashy tech or crazy startup valuations. It's about making sure the real perks of electric mobility, cleaner air, lower operating costs, smoother travel, are truly equitable. Whether you're living in a cramped city apartment or out in a rural farming community miles from the nearest highway exit, this infrastructure literally has to work for everyone. We have seen some seriously incredible ingenuity in this explainer today. Between software predicting optimal grid loads, retractable sidewalk hubs, and minivans dispensing off-grid power, the tech to bridge this infrastructure gap absolutely exists. So the final provocative question I'll leave you with is this: as billions in funding finally meet these cutting-edge solutions, how quickly will we see these innovations actually arrive in your own neighborhood?